If you are in that phase, then there are few things which you need to check, which you need to know. If you don't do that, then you may be hanging forever in something which you don't deserve and which you don't desire. Hello, Namaskar and Adab to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel Astro Assurance. There comes a time in all our lives when we are concerned about our career, about our job, about our livelihood, and sometimes we feel we are caught up in this rigmarole of going for the same job day in and day out, or we feel we have stagnated, or we feel we are not growing, or we feel we are ready for a much better job, much better brand, maybe a change in industry also. Sometimes we are looking at the corner office which has been aiding us since so many years. Now when that thought comes to us, then we start looking at and thinking, is this the right time for me to make a change in my career, in my job profile, maybe get a high educational qualification and look for those aspirational works, roles, designations, organizations, brands which have eluded me for so long. Or sometimes we are in that phase where we are thinking, should we set up shop of our own, should we go professional in our own business, in our own consulting work, or should we continue to do work under somebody else, work for somebody else. So sometimes we are in that phase. Sometimes we are in the phase where we think, should I give up all of this and do something else rather than doing business or service, start up something which I love to do, whether I get a livelihood or not, it's okay, I am financially secure. So when these thoughts comes to us, or maybe when we don't have a job, we are looking for something and we want to see, is this the right time and where do I need to check where my career can come from, where my next break can come from, then we are in this phase where we are thinking of where should I make the move, how I should make the move, and why I should make the move if at all we already are in a job. So some of us will be checking with friends, some of us will be checking with the industry, some of us will also check through astrological placements whether it is the right time for us to make the move now. If you are in that phase, then there are few things which you need to check, which you need to know. If you don't do that, then you may be hanging forever in something which you don't deserve and which you don't desire. So let's see from an astrological point of view, what are the career options we may be having and how and when we should be making the move, how should we look at the right timing of looking for a career change. Now the first question that you need to ask is, are you already in a bad job, not something which is really serving you? For example, if your remuneration is not good, or the comfort factor is not good, for example, it is too far away from where you live, you are not able to give more family time, there is less work-life balance, bad boss, maybe the company's culture is not so good, maybe the colleagues are not very supportive. If all of these situations are bugging you and you are not being paid very well, there are no growth opportunities, or you feel that you are not growing fast enough, then it is only logical for you to make that decision of thinking, should I make the next move, what is the logical move for me. But I would also say, before you think that you are ready for the next job, think about it, are you the problem because of which you are not getting the growth at work? Are you the one who is the troublemaker? Are you the one who has not been able to put in enough performance, because of which your bosses also don't think that you are deserving of that promotion? Or are you the one who has made some career mistakes, choosing the wrong brands, choosing the wrong fields, choosing the wrong industry, because of which you feel stagnated? Sometimes your heart and mind may not be in the role, may not be in the projects that you're doing, may not be with the team that you're working with, may not having enough energy to be able to work or create the rapport with your bosses. So these questions are also important. Don't only look at from the organization point of view, what it is able to give for you, do for you, but also whether you are also one who has the right attitude, right aptitude to be able to ask for those changes, or that office, that role, that designation that money which you think you deserve. The first thing, if you think you do deserve better office, a better work, then one of the very important thing before you even think of a job change is to look at Desh Kal Patra. What does Desh Kal Patra mean? Desh means the place that you are in, the country that you are in, the region that you are in, their economical, social, political environment of that country. For example, if you are in some African country which itself is very impoverished, however intelligent you are, however qualified you are, the growth opportunities will never be big for you. For that, you'll have to make a move, and that's why many people do try and make the move to Western countries. Then second, say the time. You may be in a good country, but it may be not the right time for you. The country itself may be going through challenges. For example, when UK was going through Brexit, those 2-3 years were the flux areas for it. Or when the world was going through the pandemic, those 3-4 years, companies were not hiring people. In fact, some of the best companies were firing people or letting go of people or benching people. And companies, when they hire people, nowadays the trend is companies are looking for highly qualified people, some experience but younger blood. If you're already well past your prime from an organizational perspective, for example, if you are in your late 40s, 45, 46, 47, and if you're thinking of quitting a job then searching for another job, then it may not be the right thing to do. First, you need to have a job before you look for another one, because if you quit your job and then you're jobless for a year, no other company may want to touch you, especially if they have cheaper options, more reasonable options from a remuneration point of view, a younger blood, and somebody who may not have that kind of an experience but qualified enough. They will take that person for 50% cheaper remuneration than you. Then you need to be careful that you should not be in a hurry to quit your job somewhere and then look for a job. If you want to make the change, you need to make a change looking at what the environment is and whether the organization is looking for more experienced people and they are ready to pay what you feel you deserve rather than go for younger blood. The other thing is there is a risk in that. If you change your job, even if you are able to find another one, you get into another one, if that organization is not very well entrenched, then what could happen if that organization, the new organization, goes through some challenges? Then the first people to be allowed to go or asked to go may be the newest people, because those people who are more tenured, who has already worked in the organization for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they deserve to have a place, a continued place, because of their loyalty, their commitment, and they are already having done service to the organization for so many years. So there is always a risk. So the Desh Kal Patra becomes very, very important when you're thinking of a career change, a job change. Then the very important thing is to look at the Dasha Lord, whichever Dasha you are in. Who is the Dasha Lord? Is it Saturn? Is it Jupiter? Is it Rahu? Is it Venus? Because what happens, whatever the particular planet is the Karaka of, that will always be activated because the Mahadasha or the main Dasha of the planet is on. Say for example, if you are in the Dasha of Saturn, then Saturn is the Dasha of people who work under somebody, serving people, but also the Dasha of commitment, loyalty, but karma, career, work. So it makes sense to be able to look for a job change rather than getting into business. I'm just saying this at a 70,000 feet level. It's not that because you're in a Saturn Dasha, you should never try to do business. Secondly, if you're in a Jupiter Dasha, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, but Jupiter is also the planet of learning from your experiences, learning from your high experiences. So generally in the Jupiter Dasha, you may get a chance if you're highly experienced. If you are somebody who have a lot of learning, you're very qualified, you're almost a guru in your area, in your industry, then you have a higher, better time for you to be able to get into a service or job, even business, which is based on learning, high experience, high expansion. If it's the Venus Dasha, then it is about how you can look at better quality of life, higher remuneration, better designation, better brands, all of that kicks in. Obviously, you will also be able to look for a job in your area, but you may be able to look for maybe better brands, maybe richer brands also. If it's Rahu, then it may be in your Rahu Dasha, something very innovative, something very creative, but something very out of the box, something very unusual. Maybe a complete change of industry, maybe a complete change of place, complete change of role, complete change of project that you're doing it. So somebody who is working in, say for example, a finance company, a wealth management company, may immediately or may settle for working for a government who is looking at tax audits. Very, very different. Or goes from a company which is dealing in financial accounting to a company which is dealing in insurance, maybe in the same finance department. So that is what the Rahu Dasha may bring upon. If you are in a Ketu Dasha is all about upheavals, sudden changes, sudden new opportunities also coming from, getting completely detached from one industry, one job, one role, one remuneration, and getting into a completely new different one also. Sometimes coming with a feeling of loss. The loss may actually not happen to you, the change may be good for you in the long run, but at that particular point of time there may be a sense of loss, fear, insecurities also if you are making the job change, for example during the Ketu Dasha. Then look at what is the Antardasha that you are in, because the Antardasha can be as short as 1 year, maybe to 3 years also, depending on which Mahadasha you are in, which planet's Antardasha you are in. For example, if you are in the Mahadasha of Sun, Antardasha of Ketu, you know how long it is. It may be for a few months. If you are in Venus Mahadasha and Mercury Antardasha, then it is for a longer period. So look at the Antardasha period also. Why it is important is because then you can see in the last few months since you have entered that particular Dasha Antardasha period, or say the last 1.5 years, whatever has been the journey in the Dasha Antardasha so far, how has that Dasha Antardasha period treated you? Have you got more stroke of luck? Have you been more luckier? Did you find new things happening to you, luckier things happening to you, or you coming across new opportunities to you even if you are not looking for a change? So that is also an intuition, a sign given to you to make the change, especially if the zodiac is sending you those signals. Then look at whether the Dasha Antardasha is giving you a combination of somewhere getting connected to either the second house of remuneration, of livelihood, fifth house, change, upheavals in the job. Fifth house, mind you, is the 8 to the 10, or the 9th house of fate and luck changing, or the 6th house of service, or the 10th house of karma. If any of these Dasha Antardasha that you are in is getting connected to any of these houses, then it means that maybe if you try and make a move towards that, for example, if you are in a Dasha Antardasha which is getting connected to the second house and Lagna is your stature in society, a betterment. Second house is higher remuneration, a change in your livelihood. So making a change from a livelihood perspective, better remuneration may be more feasible. If you are in 10th house and the 5th house Dasha, for example the Dasha or Mahadasha of the 10th Lord and the Antardasha of the 5th Lord, then a change maybe in the industry, maybe in the way you work, maybe with the projects, maybe with the kind of work you do, that may be in the office. So see what is the combination. Is the combination of the second 10, 6th 10, 7th second, for example for businesses, or 7th 11 also for business, 3rd 5th for doing something of your own, consulting work, starting your social media enterprise, getting online, writing blogs. Especially if it's 9th and 10th, it could be writing blogs, writing articles, writing books. If it's 8th and 10th, then maybe writing fictional accounts or writing on something very technical which is about money, taxation, government related work. Then look at what specific Pratyantar Dasha you are in, if you are looking at those 2-3 months, 4 months, 5 months within which you need to make a change. If the Pratyantar Dasha is of the 3rd Lord and 3rd Lord is Saturn, or Saturn is placed in the 3rd house, then it could be a chance of a time for even looking at your self enterprise, doing it alone, going out on your own, doing it on your own, starting a consulting firm, starting a business, starting a partnership. Especially if Saturn is in your 3rd house, then this is a time maybe you need to look at that seriously. Then look at the current transits. These 4 planets are very important for the current transits: Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu and Ketu. The slower moving planets are not very important for a job change, because these slow moving planets may immediately transit over a house, within 15 to 20 days, maximum 40 to 45 days. So that is not such a good time or feasible enough time or long enough time for you to plan a job, apply for a job and get a job. You need at least a period of 3 to 4 months, maybe 5 months, in which you start looking out, give interviews, serve the notice period in your organization, and then put in your resignation and join a new job. So that's why the longer duration transit planets, Jupiter for a year, Rahu and Ketu for 18 months, Saturn for 2.5 years. These are more feasible. So if these 4 planets are transiting over any of those houses which can bring about a change or offer you change, whether it's 2nd house or 5th house or 6th house or your 9th house, fate and luck shining for you, the 10th house, joining a new organization, or the 11th house, joining a larger organization, working for a larger cause. In some cases, if it gets connected to the 12th house, then be very careful, especially if there are benefits in the 12th house. It could also be the time to move to foreign lands. Try to work with foreign lands or with foreign clients or with foreign companies. If a planet is not transiting over these houses but in transit is aspecting any of these houses, for example, if Jupiter is in your 6th house, then Jupiter is aspecting your 10th house, which is the house of your karma, your work. Then Jupiter is aspecting your 12th house of foreign lands, but waste and excess also, or working alone, working in MNC companies, working in an individual operation rather than in a team. And Jupiter is also aspecting your 2nd house of income, of livelihood, of new remuneration. If Saturn is in the 8th house, then from the 8th house Saturn is aspecting your 10th house. Saturn is aspecting your 2nd house of income, and Saturn is aspecting the 5th house of change, upheavals in job also, but to bring in stability. If Rahu is in the 7th house, then Rahu is aspecting your 11th house, working for large organization, working for large causes. And from the 7th house, Rahu is also aspecting your 3rd house of self-enterprise. And so because Rahu is placed in the 7th house of partnership, of business, aspecting in the 11th house, your wishes and desires coming true and working for large organizations or in a business environment, business setup, and also aspecting the 3rd house of self-enterprise, then during the Rahu Dasha Antardasha, it may be more feasible, if at all you have that mindset of going it alone, to try for that. If Ketu in the 6th house, then Ketu is aspecting your 10th house of career and the 2nd house of remuneration. So which means you need to be more careful if you are in the Ketu Dasha or Antardasha, because this could create an upheaval in your career, work, and in your 2nd house of income and remuneration. But Ketu keeps getting you an opportunity during a Dasha and Antardasha of making the change, detaching you from one area, attaching you to some other one. So if you're caught up in something, Ketu can be the biggest liberator, liberates you away, detaches you away from not so good a job or role, gets you connected to a new one, a more feasible one, a more rewarding one. But also look at the current transits. Are there the current transits that of not only the malefics like Ketu and Saturn, but are they also functional malefics for you? For example, for a Taurus ascendant native, Saturn is not a functional malefic. It's a functional benefic and it's a strong yoga karaka. Same thing for a Libra ascendant native. So keep that in mind when you're trying to make the change, and especially if the planet which is transiting, if it's transiting over your 10th house, for example, Ketu is transiting over your 10th house. If it, for example, in the current transit for a Capricorn ascendant native, Ketu is right now transiting over your 10th house starting from this month onwards, which is April 2022, which means this could be a good time for you to think about the change, or the change could be coming towards you, or to hold on to the job without making too much change or expecting the change, because you may want to hold on to the job rather than making any career decision, any risky decision now. But if you find that it is feasible, the best time for you, and you want to make the change, Ketu may in fact help you the most because it is transiting over your 10th house. And last but not the least, sometimes which people don't do, to a prashna. A prashna is something that whenever the thought comes to you, the moment that thought comes to you, should I change the job? Is it a feasible time for me to change the job? Immediately at that particular moment, whichever location you are, create a kundli of that particular time. For example, if that thought comes to you at 10 p.m. on a Sunday evening, the 1st of May, then immediately create the prashna for that time, for that location, wherever you are, the kundli for that, and then look from the prashna perspective with that question in mind. Is it the right time for me to make the job? And then the kundli which is created, the chart which is created, from there look at where the benefics are transiting. Where are they moving over? Are the benefics moving over your 10th house? Are they moving over your lagna? So this has nothing to do with your own kundli. This is specifically to do with that question in your mind. is this a right time for me to make a job change? So then looking at what is the Prashna Kundli and looking at your astrological placement, then think if it's feasible, then only look for a job change. However, one more advice to you: never try and leave a job before you do another one, and have enough financial security to sustain at least for a year, especially if you're thinking of going it alone, starting your own business. And even if you think you want to start your own business, then after accounting for whatever monies you need to have to start the business, also account for at least 6 months to a year that amount of money that you need to have in the bank to sustain the business, to be able to cover all the expenses of your home as well as your business. Only then take the risk, then jump into the fire of trying to make the change. So friends, these are some tips to look into, especially if the thought has come to your mind: when is the right time for me to make a career change? Should I make the career change? How I should make the change? Where I should make the change? And when you look at all of this and then you make a decision, then you can make a more qualified, educated decision to know that it is not only the right time for me to make the change, maybe even the best time for me to make the change. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me with the links given below. Until some other time with some other video, this is your friend, astrologer and guide Irfan, signing off. Ciao.